She has a big heart, big wings, and a big commitment to restoring the magic to communities. Welcome to the Fairy Godmother Show.
Now, keep in mind, a lot of these questions actually they all came from someone who is probably in this room. And so what I did was I sort of organized them based on if they were actual questions or if they were comments or if they were based on a question that honestly should not be answered by you, but they're medical professional. Because some of the questions are very technical in terms of the medical world. And I don't want to put you on the spot to try and answer something that, like that. So with that, the first question is someone who wanted to know, why was it so difficult to actually still get testing done? And that's regular testing as well as rapid testing also. They actually, two different people asked that question.
Yeah, so the rapid testing is a little bit more difficult. What I will say is that the regular testing should not be difficult right now. Now there's still some issues with the regular testing, and are the test results getting back quickly enough? But I can tell you that I've been to the Harriman state-run site near Bear Mountain Park and Anthony Wayne Recreation Center off the Palisades Parkway. I've been there a number of times. So I tested positive there once, but I've gotten tests there beyond that positive test, and they have a very quick turnaround, at least for me. I got my test results back in about 2 days after getting tested there. And right now, you don't even need an appointment. You can just show up. If you have transportation issues, you can reach out to my office and we can try and help with that. But you can go to Cornerstone. They're administering tests right in the city of Newburgh. But there should not be, at this point in February 2021, there should not be any issues with people getting a regular COVID test, which I'll remind people, I understand sometimes you want a rapid test because you're going somewhere the next day or later that day. But the rapid tests are not as accurate as the standard COVID test. So that's something to keep in mind. And so unless you are in some super rush, I would encourage people to consider the standard COVID tests because they are more accurate, and no one should have a problem getting those tests down.
So, and just FYI, if we have any veterans in the room, I know that Ramona is a disabled vet, and it is an absolute requirement that within every 14 days of going into their building, into the VA facility, that they will not allow you in the building unless you're tested. The good thing is that they actually do the test right there for you. So if we have any veterans, very, very, very easy way to get tested. Okay, next. Do we have to pay for the vaccine or a booster?
The vaccine is just like testing. The vaccine is free. I mean, part of the agreement that these vaccine developers had was, they got a boatload of federal money to assist with their research and developing the vaccines. And part of that agreement was you can't charge Americans when you do develop the vaccine and it becomes available.
Great. So I don't know if you can answer this, but I'm going to ask and you'll tell me if you can't, and I want you to do that. So this question is, which vaccines do not include dead or weakened viruses, and where can you find a detailed list of the ingredients that are actually in the vaccines?
So there are, and I don't remember exactly which is which, but there are basically two types of vaccines, COVID vaccines that are available. One set are mRNA vaccines, and the other are what you're describing, which is basically a weakened version of the virus is put into your arm to basically rev up your immune system and create that immunity. And so the mRNA science is relatively new in vaccines. And the latter, where a weakened virus is in the vaccine, that is typically how vaccines have always worked. And so if someone has particular concern about, one or the other, they should know that there are those two options available. And I'll make sure that my staff, who they're in this Zoom right now, they'll put in the chat which ones are which, and just so we can all have the information while we're here in the Zoom.
Well, I'm just actually, Vin just asked a good question just to follow up on that. What is because all I heard about is Pfizer and Moderna. So the one that you're speaking about, mNRA, is that a third pharmaceutical company?
No. So so Pfizer and Moderna, those are the companies. Those are the folks that have developed these vaccines. There's also the Johnson & Johnson vaccine coming. AstraZeneca is coming. And so those are the companies that are developing these vaccines and making them available. What I was referring to before, the mRNA, that's basically the type of vaccine that exists or that can exist, and it's one of the options. And so mRNA is not another company. It's not another research outfit or developer of vaccines. And like I said, my staff will put in the chat, and then I'll share in case people don't see the chat. I don't know if it's the Moderna or the Pfizer offhand. I can't remember which one uses the mRNA and which one uses the traditional way of supplying vaccines, which is through this weakened virus.
Okay.
So right. I see in the chat here, so the Moderna is the mRNA vaccine.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
And they're both, they're both mRNA. So Johnson & Johnson is not mRNA, and AstraZeneca, I don't think is.
Okay. So if everybody could just hold their questions. Let me go through the list. If we have some time at the end, then we can open it up. Just depending on what time allows for us, okay? So another question, how many doses have been given statewide?
That is a good question. Let me circle back. I'll get an answer while we're all here. I don't want to give a wrong answer, and so we'll circle back on that one.
Okay, so next question is, who determines the allocation that actually goes throughout Orange County? Basically, who is the point agency for Orange County, or is there one?
So the State Department of Health is predominantly in charge of distribution, and we get the supply from the federal government. The federal government took on most of the responsibility related to getting nursing home residents vaccinated, and basically everything else has fallen to the state, and it's been the state's responsibility. And so it's the state that distributes the vaccine. I am constantly, and my office is constantly pushing to try and get as much vaccine as we possibly can to the 3 counties in our Senate district, including Orange County. But that's how it's distributed. And so the state will give the Orange County government a supply. The state will also give, the providers a supply as well, whether it's St. Luke's Cornwall Hospital, who's predominantly working to get their staff, their large staff vaccinated, as well as some providers like Cornerstone as well. And so that's how it's distributed. And it's based on population, certainly. It's based on need. I see here about 2 million doses have been distributed in New York State so far, and so that's to answer the last question. And almost 100% of that has been used and administered. In the earlier days of late December, early January, there was a problem, in my opinion, with some parts of the state more readily using the vaccines that were being distributed to them, and some other parts of the state that were not using the full supply that were being shipped to them. But that has changed, and now basically every region in the state is using and has used, I should say, 90+% of the vaccines that have been shipped to them. So that's where we are right now. That's how they're distributed.
Okay.
Sorry,
So,
correction, almost 3 million, not 2 million.
almost a minute. Okay.
Have been distributed.
All right. So, all right. So the next question is, the person said that they are basically waiting, and they're okay with waiting to make sure that the people who really need it actually get it. But is there at this point any sort of plan for rolling out more of it across Orange County at a faster rate, which I know you actually touched on, saying about 21% increase is coming into the county?
Yeah, so that's coming into the state, and basically that should be across the board, that 21%. So Orange County should see roughly about that same increase, and that is just in the past week. And so, like I said at the onset of this conversation, the supply issue is going to remain an issue for a while, but it should get better, and it already is, as of this week, getting better. And so I get it. You know, people are still very frustrated. I know people who are still waiting a month plus to get an appointment, and the minute that vaccines open up, the appointments, they disappear within 15, 20 minutes. So it is very frustrating, but the supply issue is getting better. Like I said, you're going to start seeing more administered through some of the chain pharmacies starting on Friday, which help with the access issue, especially in a place like the city of Newburgh, where a lot of people, they may not have cars to be able to drive to get a vaccine. And Haverstraw and Rockland County, as more and more access points open up, it's going to help underserved communities be able to reach where these vaccines are being administered. So it should be getting better, but it still will remain frustrating.
Is there any sort of sense of a timeline when, we should be at maximum distribution? 6 months, a year, 18 months? Is there any sort of feeling about that right now?
So we expect, as long as we don't run into additional unexpected problems with vaccine refusal, people refusing to take the vaccine. We know there's going to be a group of people that fall into that category. But given that, we project that by the end of this year, there should be some sense of herd immunity. So 70, 80% of people. And basically at that point, the expectation is that anyone who wants to get a shot ought to have been able to get a shot by then. So we're talking like a late fall, early winter, that should be the case. It's a long time out.
Right. Okay. So I know you actually talked about this. One of the questions actually dealt with the waste and what's happening with any leftover or unclaimed vaccines. Is there any? But you talked about the fact that that's at a minimal at this point.
Yeah, that's one. When I mentioned before, some problems have been addressed and have, we've seen significant improvement, and some remain. This one has gotten a lot better, and there are basically no regions of the state where we're seeing large stockpiles of unused vaccine, because obviously the one thing you don't want to see here, and this is the state's responsibility, the distribution to counties and communities. What we don't want to see is Orange County using 100% of their vaccine supply, and then Erie County and Buffalo, they're only using 70% of their vaccine supply. Because then I'm going to say, and I did say in early January, well, with all due respect to Buffalo, if they're not using 30% and we're using 100%, we should be getting some of that supply. We're not really seeing that problem now, and all the regions are 90% up, just about, with using the supply, and that 10% is not some indication that they're sitting on shelves unused. That just means they're rolling appointments and they're getting people in the door, and those vaccines are there preparing themselves to be put into arms, and for the people who are signing up.
Thank you. Okay, so next question is, what is the timeline for the vaccine for individuals under 65s who have compromised immune systems?
Yeah, so I mentioned that earlier, where starting in 5 days, The pool is going to expand to include individuals with underlying health problems, comorbidities, and I don't know how many exactly people that is, but I imagine it's a lot. It's probably in the millions. And so, that's something that if you fall into that category, starting in 5 days, you'll be eligible to sign up for a vaccine.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us. We can't wait to see you next time right here on the Ferry Godmother Show, where we are restoring the magic to life and play.